Department for letting us allow us to have this forum here. Want to thank the two candidates for participating, and mostly I want to thank all of you for being here tonight with your questions and able to hear the candidates to what their answers and what they had to say. So each candidate will be asked a series of questions that was asked by you. They'll have 2 minutes to answer, another minute to rebuttal. If I just ask that you just hold on to your applause to the end, have no disruptions, let these two gentlemen just talk out their answers, you can listen, that way come November 5th, you know who you want to vote for. So with that set aside, let me introduce you to Mark Sylvia and Joe Pires, 10th Bristol candidate for state rep. We're going to have an opening statement, and then we'll start the debate.
Good evening. Hope everybody's doing well, and I want to thank everybody for being here today. I normally don't read, but I felt this was so important that I don't want to miss any points, so I'll proceed to read, and so please bear with me. My name is Joe Pires, a resident of Rochester. First, before I get started, I'd like to thank Leo and Scott for coordinating this debate. I was born and raised in the South Coast area, nurtured by my strong values of hard work and resilience. My mother, a single parent, an immigrant, came here to pursuit of the American dream, teaching me the importance of the opportunity and perseverance. I spent over 20 years in the corporate world, and I currently run a small to medium-sized business. Along with my wife, Valerie, we've raised 3 wonderful children in this great community. A community that currently is facing significant challenges. Among other things, a burdening migrant crisis that's straining our resources, overrunning our healthcare system, affects affordable housing, contributes to the rising cost of living, and threatens our day-to-day quality of life. Families are struggling to put food on the table. Seniors are with fixed incomes worry about the cost of prescriptions, medication, and business are trying to control the cost in order just to survive. I'm a fighter, someone who will stand up for you. We can do better. I can do better. I will be your voice and your advocate for change that we need. It's time for positive change. I'm a candidate who brings independent thought, a fresh new idea to Beacon Hill. As a business owner, I understand the meaning of fiscal responsibility and staying within budget. Our state government needs a mindset that prioritizes accountability and efficiency. I am running to be your next state representative because I believe putting the needs of the South Coast residents needs to come first. Together, we can tackle these pressing issues, ensuring that our families thrive, our businesses grow, and our community remains vibrant and strong. Thank you for your support, and let's work towards a brighter tomorrow for all of us. I'm here today because I stand for everybody in this community, every single one of you. Whether you're a Democrat, Independent, Republican, no matter what race, I want to represent and improve the lives of everyone, and I mean that sincerely. I thank you for this time.
Thank you, Joe, and thank you to the Neighborhood Association for this forum. I think it's really important for folks to hear the candidates, their views on the important issues, and make your decision on November 5th. My name is Mark Sylvia, and I'm the Democratic candidate running for state representative in the 10th Bristol district. I grew up in this district. I'm so very proud to have grown up in the South Coast and in the 10th Bristol district. It's where I've raised my family. I understand the challenges that we all face on a daily basis, primarily the high cost of living. From housing to childcare to healthcare, we're all feeling the impact right now. As your state representative, I will focus on these critical issues and others facing our district. Parents must be able to find quality, affordable childcare for their children. People should be able to access healthcare without fear of going into debt. or for-profit healthcare systems going out of business. And we have to deal with the lack of housing, which is leading to higher and higher prices and makes it nearly impossible for the next generation to purchase a home of their own. And for our seniors who have worked so hard over their lives, we have to ensure that they're able to enjoy retirement. I will also be a strong advocate for state aid to support our schools, fire, police, transportation, and other critical local services. I will fight for our local fishing industry, for tourism and the cranberry industry, and for small businesses. I'll fight for our environment and against climate change. And I will always protect our fundamental rights. Among them, workers' rights, reproductive rights, and LGBTQ+ rights. I'll be ready to go on day one. I'll bring with me my immense energy and enthusiasm for our communities. I'll bring with me my municipal, state, and private sector experience and the relationships I've built throughout my career. But most of all, and most importantly, I will bring your voice with me to Boston. Throughout my life and career, I've carried the values that I was taught growing up on the South Coast. We all believe in hard work and showing compassion for each other, and we believe that our strength and success come from working together and building community. It's those values that will guide me as your next state representative. We know what the challenges and opportunities are. We know what needs to be done, and now it's time to get to work. I will wake up every morning fighting for our district with a sense of urgency and guided by those very important values. I know our district, your priorities are my priorities, and I will hit the ground running for all of us on day one. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're gonna start with some questions. Questions are just random. They're just in the box. I'm just gonna pick from them. And hopefully we don't get a lot of duplicates. First question. How do you feel about offshore wind industry? And if elected, how would you vote for your day one in office?
You go first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you just repeat the question, Scott?
Yeah.
The last part of it. I know it was about how you feel about
How do you feel about the offshore wind industry? And if elected, how would you vote for the offshore, for day one in office?
How would I?
How would you go about it?
Okay, thank you. So the question is, how do I feel about offshore wind? As we all know, we are facing a horrible climate challenge in this country. It's an all-in solution for us. We need to invest in a number of clean energy technologies. That includes offshore wind, it includes solar, energy efficiency, and other clean energy technologies. Climate change is real, but it doesn't mean that it's just offshore wind, or that offshore wind doesn't need to also be in alignment with our other critical industries. Fishing is a critical industry for us. It's the #1 fishing port. New Bedford is the #1 fishing port in the United States. There are over 7,000 jobs that are shore jobs that are directly related to the fishing industry. Fishing has fed our tables, or put food on our tables, for well over 100 years. The two need to peacefully coexist together. We need to make sure that offshore wind does more to support our fishing industry, and at the same time, it's important that we invest in offshore wind to help combat climate change and help reduce costs for ratepayers.
That's a very sensitive topic for many of us, as some of you, most of you have gotten your electric bill. And it's been shock and horror for most families, including seniors that are barely making it now and have to be faced with an electric bill that's tripled. Offshore wind, on all due respect, I appreciate the idea of protecting our environment for us, for our children, but offshore wind has not proven itself. Offshore wind has been more damning than positive for a lot of reasons. We can see what's going on with our sea life. We've had engineers, experts, researchers telling us that it's causing a really horrible effect to our mammals. We see evidence of it. Offshore wind has put tremendous amount of pressure on our fishermen, restricting the time that they can fish, where they can fish. I've spoken to them firsthand. They're telling me stories that I don't want to hear, and I know many of you don't want to hear. But more importantly, we have a state, we have a government that's allowing offshore companies to come into our precious territory. Like Mark said, we have the #1 seaport in the country, and we're allowing them to dictate where they can put these windmills and to what extent. There's subsidies, there's grants that are being offered to these companies, incentives. 40% of their pay gets paid right up front on our backs, the tax rate payer. We're the rate payer. New York, New Jersey has already set their standards at 150 mega kilowatt hour. That's triple the amount of fossil fuels or onshore wind. Now, I'm sorry, but that's not reducing our energy costs. I think there are, a good way to, start the process is to look at this more seriously, really take our time, look at the damages that are being done, and let's put a pause on offshore wind until we get a better handle on it. Thank you.
Mr. Sylvia, do you need a rebuttal, or if you want to, you can give you a 30-second rebuttal if you like.
Sure. I mean, I guess the question is, what's the alternative? If not offshore wind and investing in clean energy technology, what is the alternative? We know that climate change is real. We know that fossil fuels are damaging our environment. And so what is the alternative? If it's gas, where are we going to put it? Where are we going to extend the pipeline? Where are we going to put the storage facilities for LNG? The issue is, how do we address climate change? And how do we do both? How do we ensure that we have a vibrant fishing industry and at the same time invest in clean energy? We can do both.
Go ahead. 30 seconds.
And in all due respect, I want to live here. I want to see my neighbors live here. I want to see my friends retire here. I want to see my son and daughters be able to have a life here and be able to thrive. The rate we're going, we have to respect the environment. I understand that, but at what cost? Folks, we are at critical mass in the expenses that everyone is incurring. The last thing we need is a higher energy cost, higher utility cost. We need to move slow and be careful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One of our second question. New Bedford's wastewater insurance problems have been in the news lately. Please describe the issue and how did you help resolve it at the state level? Mr. Pires?
That's a major concern. I feel we should be putting 100% focus on our beautiful harbor. We have probably one of the best areas to live, as far as I'm concerned, in the United States, if not the world. We have every aspect of beauty, and our oceans. I often said this years ago when I was on the radio. We are so fortunate that we have seafood right here at our disposal. And if we can't correct our environment, then I'm sorry. We need to put pressure on our state officials, including myself, God willing, if I'm elected, to start providing funds, grants, avenues for a way to fix this problem. Other cities, other areas have done it. We can too. I think it needs to be placed at the top priority. People live in this city and they want to live in a clean environment. They don't want to wake up every morning and smell whatever effluent is out there. And I'm sorry, it has to be corrected. Thank you.
So the question was about wastewater. It's not just New Bedford, it's a regional issue that all communities are facing. New Bedford, Fairhaven, Mattapoisett, Rochester, in some similar ways and in different ways. For Fairhaven and for New Bedford, it's about upgrading their wastewater treatment facilities. The town of Fairhaven has invested in upgrading their wastewater treatment facility, and the city of New Bedford is doing the same. Your state representative should be there to advocate for additional funding and support those projects and to work collaboratively with the city of New Bedford, the town of Fairhaven, and the other communities to make this solution a regional solution. At the end of the day, your state representative is there not only to advocate for additional funds, but to be a convener and bring people together. The players are all there. They're all working together, and your state representative can also be there to help them do more together.
This is not a new problem. This has been going on for years, and it's been ignored. We need to take action. This is what I mean about a new voice, new ideas, but putting accountability first and saying our needs need to be met first. We need action now. Thank you.
To be clear, this issue is not being ignored. Talk to the mayor of New Bedford. Talk to the head of the Department of Public Works in the town of Fairhaven. Talk to officials from Mattapoisett or even officials from Rochester. This is not an issue that's being ignored, and there is no need for us to divide people. We have to bring people together to solve these issues. People are working on these issues. Your state representative is part of the solution in helping to find state funding and bring people together.
Thank you for that. We're going to watch question number 3. What qualities as a candidate do you believe you possess which set you apart from your opponent, which better suit you to facilitate easing tension locally around issues the former president has made central to his campaign, demonizing immigrants, demonizing the LGBTQ community, and demonizing our public school system, its teachers, librarians, and administrators? I'll repeat the question, I know it's kind of long. What qualities as a candidate do you believe you possess which set you apart from your opponent, which better suit you to facilitate easing tension locally around issues the former president has made central to his campaign, demonizing immigrants, demonizing the LGBT community, demonizing our public school system, its teachers, librarians, and administrators? Mr. Sylvia?
Thank you very much for that question. I think there are a number of things that make me the best candidate for this job. First, my experience, having been a town manager, having worked in state government, and having worked in the private sector. The combination of those different experiences provide me with an opportunity to really dig in, to tap into the relationships that I've built, and to hit the ground running on day one. I'm also someone who's collaborative and works with people and brings people together. That's super important, whether it's as the elected town moderator in Fairhaven or in any other role that I've played either publicly or in my personal life. I feel very strongly about bringing people together. That's what we need. When we knock on doors, we hear from people. They're tired of the division. They're tired of the name calling, and they're tired of the blaming. I'm the type of candidate that's not a blamer. I don't point fingers. I work with people, and that's the difference.
To answer that question, I have to start off with, I'm Cape Verdean. Both my parents were born in Bravo. I'm a son of 2 immigrants. I've watched them work hard. I've watched them seize the opportunity, live the American dream, purchase a house in Dartmouth at a very young age in the 70s. I felt my parents led me by example, and I want what they gave me for my children. The question was asked about immigrants. I totally respect immigrants. That's who we are. But the process of immigrating here has to be governed. It has to be done in a very controlled way so that a state like Massachusetts isn't overwhelmed financially, burdened with strained resources. It has to be done in a very controlled fashion. It has to be done properly. My parents have a sense of pride. What's going on today in this state is a sense of entitlement in many ways. And that, my friends, has to stop. We have to take a serious look at that, or we will bankrupt Massachusetts. As far as LGBTQ, I have respect for everyone. I'm willing to work hard for everyone. My best friends happen to be gay. I have people in my life that live different lifestyles, different color skin. I have best friends from all different parts of the world. We are human. That's it. We are human. I want the betterment of everyone who lives here in the South Coast. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to question 4. Are there any circumstances in which you would support removing a book from a public or school library? Please be as specific as possible. Pires?
Thank you. I've been on the school board now for 3 terms. I'm entering my last term halfway through. And I only became a school board member because I was delighted and so proud of the school system that my kids currently attended, and 2 of my kids have already graduated. I have a tremendous amount of respect for ORR, right from the elementary, right up to the high school. I give so much praise to the teachers who teach our children. Unfortunately, over the years, especially within the last 2 or 3 years, we've grown to learn that parental rights have been stripped away. And what I mean by that is that no book in America has been banned. My definition is we need to provide age-appropriate material to our children, especially our young children who are still developing. I'll stand here proudly and say I'll fight for all children. And I'm a big advocate for providing information, the tools that our kids need to succeed. And I'm going to stand here in front of you and say, we need to seriously take a look at what's being presented to our children at what age. And that's what I've been advocating for right along. I tried to compromise, and I feel as though that word has somewhat been diminished. There's lack of compromise. Coming to the table where every one of us can sit down and talk and come up with the best solution. Everybody in this community needs to be served, needs to feel like they're living their best life and they're providing what they want for their children in terms of quality upbringing, values, morals. We need to have respect and come to the table and figure it out and work on solutions that help everybody. Thank you.
So the question was, do you believe in banning books?
So do you support the construction of are there any circumstances in which you would support removing a book from a public or school library?
No. The answer is no. Allow me to elaborate. I trust our librarians. I trust our teachers. I trust our administrators. I trust the state frameworks. And if, as a parent, and I have a child just like Joe, one thing that Joe and I definitely agree on is we're very proud of our families. Our daughters happen to be in the same grade at Old Rochester Regional High School, so that's great. But I trust the administrators. I trust our teachers. I trust our librarians. And if I object to any material that my daughter might have access to, there is a process where I can request that she not have access to it. I think that is more than appropriate, and I think we need to move on to other bigger, more important issues that are facing our district than banning books. Yeah!
I completely respect and somewhat agree with Mark, but the emphasis that I'm making is our children are so innocent. And the information that's presented to them at a young age could affect them long term. And I believe we need to be more accountable in what we present to our children so that we all have the best outcome. And we need to just listen and come together and compromise. Thank you.
All right, before I move on to the next question, again, I just want to ask, just refrain the clapping for the end of the, so we just get through the questions. I appreciate that. All right, question 5 now. Do you support the construction of new natural gas pipelines or large-scale energy facilities in what will be your district?
Thank you. I think I answered that before, but I'll answer it again. I do not support the expansion of gas pipeline infrastructure in our district. I know this has been an issue that not only Acushnet has dealt with as it relates to LNG storage facilities, but the city of Fall River worked very hard to prevent an LNG facility from being sited in their community. Again, folks, this goes back to the issue of climate change and where we want to invest in the future. We have a choice to make here. And it gives me the opportunity to say, and you may have seen the analysis that's come out, particularly related to Vineyard Wind, and I agree with Mr. Pires that energy costs are high. But there are a number of ways that we can drive those costs down, investing more in energy efficiency. And yes, investing in renewable technology, including offshore wind, which is actually going to drive the cost of power down, not up.
I don't consider myself an expert in energy, but I do have facilities experience. I worked as an automation systems engineer for Polaroid for nearly 10 years of my latter part of the career. We had systems in place, and what I can give you, or my takeaway was, we had protocols. We had safety guidelines. We have tremendous amount of competent people who are installing facilities all over the world, nuclear, gas. I trust in them that if there is a way to bring us efficient energy sources, such as fuel, which is highly efficient and cheap. I think right now the average price is about $39 to $50 a megawatt hour. I would investigate and I would do more research and bring engineers, bring people who are experts in that industry, and sit down and have a roundtable discussion and talk about what's best for our community, what's best for cost of living, what's best for our economy. I wouldn't simply just rule it out because we have this idea that we need to go offshore wind. All of this information needs to come to the table, and we need to just look at the data and have really healthy conversations and discussions. Thank you.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not arguing that it's all about offshore wind. Massachusetts has the #1 incubator called Greentown Labs and Mass CEC, which are constantly innovating on new clean energy technologies that we can invest in. So yes, I agree. There should be a real focus on additional technologies, and it's happening right here in Massachusetts. Those are the conversations we need to be having. That's the investment we need to be making.
30 seconds.
There's a lot of information that I encourage you to do research. The average windmill has a 5-year shelf life. The amount of service and maintenance that's required to keep these apparatuses and keep them functional, it doesn't add up. When you look at the numbers, it doesn't add up. We're paying on our backs in the name of climate change. Again, I'm not denying climate change or protecting the environment, but our local economy is footing the bill for this, and it's an ongoing expense. Thank you.
So facts matter, and that's just what Mr. Pires said is just not true about the life of an offshore wind turbine. But I don't want to be debating all these merits of offshore wind. It is part of our solution. There are other technologies that we should be investing in as well. We should be doing more with solar. We should be doing more with energy efficiency. And yes, gas is going to continue to be a part of the solution. But over the long term, we need to be focused on ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, because it's about the next generations, not just us.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to the next question. What climate change mitigation plans do local towns have, and how can you unite the towns in their plans to take a strategic, larger scale approach to the entire area?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sure. What climate change mitigation plans do local towns have, and how can you unite the towns in their plans to take a strategic, larger scale approach to the entire area?
Okay, I think I have the understanding of that question. No matter what problem we're presented, no matter what issue, we're working together as a district, as a local area. I plan on talking to all of the select board members, town officials. I want to hear the needs, the challenges. How do we constantly improve the community that we live in? How do we keep it safe? How do we keep it healthy? How do we keep it economically sound so that we can, dry mouth, so that we can continue to live here. I would work at the state level. I would advocate what our needs are, and I would fight every day to try to get whatever funding, grant programs in place to make that happen. Thank you.
So each of the communities in the 10th Bristol district have climate mitigation plans. They're very thoughtful plans that have been developed by members of the community, planning boards, conservation commission members, select boards, city council, mayors. Those climate mitigation plans are real and they need to be funded. And it is true that the state needs to provide more resources to help with the implementation of those climate mitigation plans, and more resources, technical resources and otherwise. They do exist. They exist for a reason, because particularly coastal communities are bearing the largest impact of climate change in the United States. And additionally, we have a number of communities that are designated green communities. I was proud to have been the first director of the Green Communities Program, and that's something that's enabled cities and towns to reduce their energy costs and contribute to climate mitigation improvement. So there are a number of things that communities are doing, and yes, the state representative, state senator should be actively participating with each of those communities and know what's in those climate mitigation plans so they can be the best advocates they can be for their communities.
All right, we're just gonna move on to the next question. Stewart's bankruptcy has been a disaster for Massachusetts. What would you do to prevent such a recurrence in the future?
I have a really simple answer for this one. For-profit corporations should not own hospitals or healthcare systems in Massachusetts. Full stop.
Just like any business, there needs to be guidelines. There needs to be state guidelines. At the end of the day, these agencies, these companies are here to serve the communities that surrounds them. This should have never happened, and it's shameful, and we need to do better. We need to figure out ways to keep this from happening again. Thank you.
Yeah. If I could just add, there's a big distinction between a nonprofit entity owning a hospital and managing a healthcare system and a for-profit corporation that's focused on cutting costs and driving up profit. There are certain areas, and Massachusetts didn't used to allow for-profit corporations to own hospitals. We have a major crisis, not just with Morton Hospital or St. Anne's Hospital, but hospitals on the North Shore. And guess what? The Commonwealth of Massachusetts is now fitting the bill to the tune of $5 million to ensure that a sale goes through that allows a nonprofit to actually own the hospitals. My point is, for-profit decision-making should not guide or drive healthcare decisions.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. Would you support constitutional carry of a firearm?
I want to be the first one to tell you that I support the Second Amendment. I have been a strong advocate most of my life for self-protection. I've been a strong advocate for having an American citizen the right to protect him or herself and him or her family. And I feel as though there are so many other issues we should be focusing on than restricting gun laws. Thank you.
So the question was, do you support the constitutional right to own a gun?
Yeah, would you support constitutional carry of a firearm?
It already exists. It's in the Constitution. The Supreme Court has indicated that people have a right to carry a gun. I think common sense gun safety laws are always the right approach, but I think we all agree that it's a constitutional right that we have to carry a firearm. Let's just make sure that we provide as many safe laws as possible to prevent gun deaths.
All right, moving on here, go back to healthcare. As healthcare costs are way too high and are growing each year, what can we do at the state level to get these costs under control?
So I think there are a few things that we can do at the state level and that the legislature can do. I think one thing is that the legislature can ensure that health insurance companies are expanding coverage for things like addiction services and mental health services. Those are such critical areas that our health insurance needs to do a better job and help drive down costs for consumers by covering more care. I think allowing for more competition in terms of the number of providers that participate in the Massachusetts healthcare system will help to drive down costs as well. I also think the legislature can do more to drive down prescription drug costs. Those are all things that the legislature can do to help bring down the cost of healthcare in Massachusetts.
Yes, there are many things that we can do, many ways we can tackle it, but we have to look at the big elephant in the room. Right now, we have seniors that aren't taking the necessary meds that they should be taking. We have young adults that aren't getting appointments to their medical doctor, they have to wait. There are people going without surgery because their insurance is not approving it. I'm not an insurance person, but I know we are being faced with skyrocketing insurance costs when it comes to health care. I happened to be at the post office about 3 weeks ago, and an insurance executive stopped me, asked me questions. I answered all of her questions, and then she turned around, she says, I need to tell you something. The reason why your health care insurance is as high as it is, there's a direct correlation between the people that are coming into this state and getting free health care. Someone has to pay for it, we're paying for it. And she looked at me and she says, look, people need to realize what's going on in these area hospitals and why you're waiting for your doctor to see you 6 months or to get into a specialist. They're being overwhelmed, and that's a fact. Now, she proceeded to say, I need to vote accordingly because people need to realize this is where it starts, at local politics. We need to start making positive change, affect change in the areas that's going to help us in our daily lives. Thank you.
Yeah, to be clear, it's not because of immigrants that health insurance costs are going up. Let's be very clear. Healthcare increases are the cost of a number of different things, not least of which is the inflation that we're dealing with, but also the choices that health insurance companies are making and the need for us to do more to make sure that health insurance companies are prioritizing the things that we need them to prioritize for us. In addition, another issue that, on the campaign trail that I've heard a lot about is the lack of primary care physicians. The reason why there's a lack of primary care physicians is not because of immigrants. The lack of primary care physicians is because more doctors are choosing not to go into the primary care field. And in our area, they don't get paid what they get paid in other parts of the country. And with housing costs the way they are, we also are finding it hard to recruit more doctors to the area. So there are a number of issues here that we can deal with in order to bring down the cost of health insurance, but it's not because of immigrants.
Thank you, Mark, for correcting me. The word I should have used was illegal migrants that are entering our state. And that's the problem that I see right now. You have funding, our $2 billion surplus was spent on supporting migrants. The migrant crisis is a major issue in this state right now. Our medical costs are being strained. Our daily lives are being affected by these high insurance costs. And the reason why doctors aren't pursuing medical field the way they are is because they're getting sued. And this is a major problem in this state. And again, protecting our quality of life, protecting our standard of living. Thank you.
Just to talk briefly about the issue that we're faced with when Mr. Pires refers to immigrants coming into Massachusetts or illegal immigrants. To be clear, the federal government has failed us on immigration. The reason why we're dealing with the issues we're dealing with in the emergency shelters is not because of Massachusetts, not because of the legislature, not because of the governor. It's because the federal government has failed to act. Now, it's nonpartisan, whether it was Democrats or Republicans, and we can talk about why we see this today. I won't go into that because it's not necessary, because the fact of the matter is the federal government has failed to act. And as a result, what's happened? In Massachusetts, we've had to deal with this issue on a very direct basis.
Okay, this next question is about question 2. You need me to look what question 2 is, or you both,
We both know.
you know what it is? So the question
Major
is,
requirement.
what are your thoughts on ballot question 2 and why? And Mr. Pires, you're,
Yep. Being on the school board, I take this very seriously. And just like a business, you have check and balances, and you have reports, you have numbers, you have red flag mechanisms. They're all indicators. But more importantly, it presents accountability. And I feel MCAS is a way to have a student rise to the occasion and work on delivering everything that they were taught, and come to a point where some of these kids, either on IEE, will get the help that they need to get there and reach that goal. On the other hand, I believe it also applies accountability to our teachers, our teachers that are teaching our students, to have a standard that they have to strive for and reach. So I approve, or I support keeping the MCAS test. Thank you.
So I thought long and hard about this question because I'm not necessarily sure that it's an easy one. But I spent the time doing the research, talking to people who I respect, who are in the education field, and even talking to my own children about the issue. This ballot question is simply to do away with the graduation requirement component. The frameworks, MCAS, even the MCAS test itself will continue to exist and will continue to be an evaluation tool for school districts and hold school districts accountable. The only thing this question does is not make it a high stakes test for graduation. Most states are moving away from state graduation exams for their public schools, and there are a number of reasons, too many probably to mention now, but I came to the realization, at first I was like, well, I think we should keep the MCAS exam, but I did my research, I dug in, I talked to people who were impacted the most, and I'm comfortable saying that I'll vote yes to eliminate the graduation requirement. And it's not just me, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, which is reflective of school committees from across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, just came out and said that they too are asking people to vote yes on question 2. So it wasn't something that I easily arrived at, but after you dig in and you understand the impact, it makes a lot of sense.
all right, thank you for that. I'm going to move on to our next question. What is your relationship with the national group Moms for Liberty and the local group Tri-Town Protecting Children? Are you a member of these groups, and how are you directly working with them in Massachusetts?
I guess I'm first, and the answer is I'm not associated, I'm not involved, so no.
I like to say that I'm a proud member of Tri-Town for Protecting Children. I'll probably use my entire 2 minutes on this answer. During the peak time of the when people finally learned that there were inappropriate materials in the library, or things or items that some parents disagreed with, there was a void for many of the parents. I would say a good portion of the school students' parents were contesting it, and there was really nowhere for these parents to go. They would approach or come into the school board, want to make the comments, and we were listening, but we weren't hearing them. And fortunately, we had several people in our community that said, well, we need to develop an organization that we can support some of these families who feel as though that their voice wasn't being heard. And Tri-Town for Protecting Children is really geared to just protecting the innocence of children and giving parents parental rights when it comes to public education. It's a great organization. I encourage all of you to visit, look at the site, read about what's going on, and it's just another support group, supportive organization to help parents from all different religions, backgrounds, but the common ground here, we all want what's best for our children. Thank you.
I don't have much to add. I agree that we all care about our children, and I acknowledge and recognize people can join organizations that they feel strongly about and that reflect their beliefs. But I think we kind of go back to the question about public schools and process. And in Old Rochester, there was a process that the school district followed that dealt with this issue and the concerns raised. And I will go back to, as an individual parent, if I have an issue or I object to a particular topic that's being taught in the classroom, I have that right as a parent to ask that my child not participate. I think that's what's most important.
Okay, we're gonna move on to our next question here. Parallel products has been a hot issue just outside this district. Please describe the issue and use that as an example of how you would solve similar problems should they come to your district.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with Parallel Products, it is a company that's in the industrial park that processes recycled materials. They've filed a permit and a request to expand what they're doing on that property to include trash transfer, which is a whole different aspect of what that company does now. Even though Parallel Products is not in the 10th Bristol district, it's adjacent to it, and any impacts related to that additional use will impact people across Ward 1, not just in that particular area. And so very clearly and honestly, I stand with the residents of that area in their opposition to what's been proposed. Odor, sound, traffic, transportation, truck traffic isn't just kept to that one little area. It goes throughout Ward 1. And so I think that's not the right use there. And so I support and stand with the residents. So the community DEP right now is in the process of reviewing that permit. It is also the case that if in fact DEP approves that permit, as state representative, I'll be working hard with my colleague Chris Markey to make sure that whatever's in that permit has strict requirements. But my hope is that it doesn't move forward, and I stand with the residents of that area.
I believe in putting the community residents' needs first. If it does present an issue, a safety, environmental issue, then I too would take the time to do the research, but let the professionals, the officials, look at the information. In Rochester, in particular, we had 2 plants that dealt with trash, recycling. One was ABC that I took a personal tour. They were doing wonderful things environmentally to help us. They were doing wonderful things economically to remove our trash in the most efficient, economical manner. And the same thing with the other facility. So there is a balance, and I think we just need to take the time, and I would be willing to sit down and go over and use my past experience working in a power plant environment. And we dealt with waste every day. And like I said earlier, there are protocols and methods for handling all different situations when it comes to waste. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go on to the next question here. A medical group is trying to remove religious exceptions for vaccinations, and the proposed legislation is supported by 2 MA lawmakers. How would you work with groups to keep this important option for the community available? Right?
Personal health is your personal responsibility. I know it's been very trying, especially in the school system, watching our own children having to go through what they did in terms of the pandemic. And there was a lot of information that was presented to us. There was a lot of unknowns. But I'm a firm believer, as the data starts to come in, as we start to learn, we need to think on our feet and be able to pivot. So as far as personal decisions, I respect people's religion, people's beliefs, and I really think there needs to be a provision to allow people to have choice. Thank you.
So I'm not particularly familiar with any particular law or initiative, Scott. I don't know if that was part of the question. But I will say this. Individuals have the right to make choices about whether they get vaccinated or not. The question is whether or not that choice has an impact on other people in public spaces like public schools or other public locations. None of us want to go back to the COVID pandemic. None of us want our kids to be fully remote. Our kids being in the schools, unmasked, is something that we want to see continue. We don't want to go back to where we were. But the reality was well over 1 million people died during that pandemic. And yes, some of it was learning as we went because we had never gone through something like this before. So I do think there are things that we've learned through this past pandemic that we can incorporate. God forbid there's another pandemic in the future. But at the end of the day, what's most important is that we protect the public health and safety of everyone. And so while people can choose to make those decisions for themselves, it could have implications on where they participate. And I think that's something that we need to be very mindful of.
All right. This looks like this might be the last question. If you had some questions in here and I didn't answer them, if they were personally directed to one candidate, I did not ask. I promised both candidates that the questions was for both of them and not anyone in specific. So if it says Mr. Pires or Mr. Sylvia, I did not ask that question. So please don't get upset if your question was not asked. That's the reason why I promised these guys that's not what this debate was all about. I didn't want no open-ended questions like that. I just wanted questions for both candidates to answer fairly. Okay.
Thank you.
What can be done at the state level to deal with the upcoming New Bedford I-95 interchange rehabilitation project and the bridges regarding traffic patterns while the repairs are underway, and to expedite the project to minimize any disruptions to the area?
And I will offer that if anybody has any specific questions that they directed at me, feel free to ask them after this forum is over. I'm happy to answer them. But on both of those issues, both the Fairhaven New Bedford Bridge and the I-94 ramp and corridor reconstruction, those are projects that are moving forward. They're in different phases of progress right now. It's incumbent on MassDOT, the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, to work very closely and directly with local law enforcement in New Bedford and Fairhaven and Acushnet and Mattapoisett, any communities that are directly impacted by any interruption in traffic flow. For Fairhaven, that's very meaningful as it relates to the bridge and the 195 project. I know that MassDOT has been actively engaged with the local communities, local elected officials in the town of Fairhaven, the city of New Bedford. And so it's critically important that they listen to those concerns and that our state legislative delegation is an advocate for those communities to make sure that whatever traffic mitigation happens for that time period is for the shortest period of time and for the from the safest perspective. We want to make sure that businesses on Pope's Island, for example, and the communities of Fairhaven and New Bedford are heard, and that whatever traffic plans are created accommodate the needs of those businesses in those communities.
I commuted to Waltham for many, many years, and I commend the people who are doing the road work, the construction. And I've always felt that in many cases they would pick nighttime, they would pick convenient times to do the work, just to accommodate your average person trying to make a living, trying to get to work. And I would be the one to advocate that we try to do all we can to support them and not be a disruption. But at the same time, this work needs to get done. It needs to get done. Some of these projects, like the rail, even the bridge, why have they taken so long? What's going on? I understand it's funding, but I come back to, it seems like it's been the moral of my entire segment here, is where are we spending the money now that we can't fix our bridges on a timely fashion? Where are we spending the money now that we can't have a commuter rail to Boston? Where are we spending the money? Why are we spending the money? That is a real concern, and that screams accountability. Let's look at where we can audit to figure out where we can tighten our belts, where can we save, so that we can improve the overall quality of life here on the South Coast. And I'll be a strong advocate for that. Thank you.
All right, I guess we're going to come to the conclusion. We're going to do the ending statements. Before we do that, though, I just want to recognize in the out there in the crowd that we have city councilors in the audience tonight. We have Shane Burgo, we have Naomi Connie, and we have Red City Councilor voted yes, sir. Anybody else want to get in? Ward 3 is Short Oliver. And next week, we're going to have the October 8th, next Tuesday, we're going to have the 8th Bristol District Debate Forum. And in the audience now is Jesse St. Joyce's back there as well. He'll be here next week. And anybody else there that I don't want to forget nobody. All right. And then we got, of course, the Ward 1 City Councilor, Leo Chiquette. Okay, so we're going to do the closing statements. Mr. Sylvia is going to go first.
Yes. And I promise I'll be brief, but thank you, Scott, to you and Ward 1 Neighborhood Association for hosting this event. I think it's so important that we have these forums for voters to hear from the candidates that are running for multiple offices, including the 10th Bristol District. This is a critical election. Not just at the national level, but for this seat in the 10th Bristol District. Bill Strauss, who is the current incumbent, has been state representative for 32 years. He serves in leadership right now as chairman of the House Transportation Committee. When Bill steps down, when he leaves in January, it is critical that the person that we elect to fill that seat can hit the ground running on day one, who understands the issues, understands the process, has the values that we all hold here in the 10th Bristol District, and has a sense of urgency. I'm 50 years old. I'm not looking to do this for 20 or 30 years. I'm looking to go in there, use my talents and my skills working with everybody in this room and across the district to get the job done. I care deeply about the community that gave me so much. I'm glad my parents are sitting in the front row, Jeanette and Ray Sylvia. They instilled the values that I talked about in my opening, about hard work, compassion for others, and community. That is what I will bring with me to Boston every day. As I said before, I will fight for what's important for us, whether it's controlling the everyday costs of life, fighting for our fishing industry, fighting for climate change, protecting basic rights. I'm your guy. I am ready to go, and I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Scott left us a bunch of candy and we haven't used it. Keep pushing it away. I want to say thank you for having a great debate fair. Thank you as well for being here. And thank you for all of you. I do have a prepared closing statement, and to Mark's point, this is a critical time. I want to thank you for joining me today, engaging in this vital conversation about our future. As your candidate for Massachusetts State Representative, my heart is with each and one of you as we face these challenging times together. Our community stands at the crossroad, and the decisions we make now will profoundly impact all of us. If we do not take decisive action, the escalating migrant crisis will continue to strain our resources, jeopardizing our quality of life we cherish. Rising property taxes, living costs threaten to push our hardworking residents to the brink, while unchecked offshore wind projects could disrupt the environment and fishing industry and endangering our way of life. Are you tired of high grocery bills? Are you tired of high electricity bills? Are you tired of high property taxes? Are you tired of having to go without the basic essentials like so many seniors are going through now? Are you tired of increased home insurance and health care insurance? Are you tired of not having parental rights in our educational system? Are you tired of having our resources strained like first responders, education, and health care? I had a teacher approach me in a local coffee shop and he told me I'm ready to quit after 30 years because I have 6 students in my class that I have to use Google Translate because they don't speak English. They're not getting the support, and that's happening in our district. But if we have the power to change, we need to have the power to change this direction. By tackling these issues head on, we can ensure a brighter future for our children and our community. I am committed to listening to your concerns, championing your needs, and leading with compassion and conviction. Together we can create a future we envision, a future our community deserves. We should be thriving. I urge you to join me in this mission. Let's act now and safeguard the community's prosperity and well-being before it's too late. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, again, folks, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening. Hopefully, if you didn't know who you're going to vote for, hopefully it's kind of changed your mind a little bit. But if you have any more questions for the candidates, I'm sure they're going to still be on hand to answer those questions that weren't asked. Again, thank you.
Everyone, I just wanted to say thank you for coming in tonight. I wanted to say thank you to the candidates. I think they all deserve another round of applause. No matter which side you vote for, the important thing is that we have this forum. It's my pleasure to have these gentlemen come in. One of them is going to be our next state representative. So it was my honor to host this in Ward 1. And I want to say thank you to everybody. And stimulating voter turnout is why we do these.